Hey, hello everyone. My name is Karlyn Percil-Mercieca, CEO and founder of KDPM ConsultingGroup Inc. And this is The Transition. It is a 7-week leadership series designed to help you to navigate the shift in normal as we go through this season. And on today's episode, I am super excited to have a chat with Carole Sandy. Carole is a relationship therapist and career coach. And today we're going to talk about managing and sustaining our work and home relationships whilst we are working from home. Carole, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, me as well. So we are going to jump right into it. Many of us are now working from home. We know that we're dealing with a crisis, so we are staying home so that we can flatten the curve, so that we can all go back to whatever the normal will be after this. What advice, what would you say as people transition from taking their entire work life from work and now they're bringing it into their homes, which they may not be mentally and physically prepared for? What advice do you have for anyone as they transition in?
It's a tough transition and everyone is going through it together. So often what I tell people to keep in mind is that we're going through it together. Don't worry about it. And this is a great time for you to use your voice. Tell your employer, let them know if you have children at home, if you need longer breaks, if you can't make it to every single meeting, create some flexibility. Open the lines of communication. This isn't the time that you want to kind of shy away from that. You want to make sure that you're talking to them. Be creative with your space. Sometimes we need to just kind of make use of small breaks. I often tell people, if you don't have a lot of space, go into the washroom. Take a 5-minute break, take a 10-minute break, be intentional about it. Right. Know that it's going to be a transition for everyone. It's going to take some time. Don't worry about if the kids are making noise. We have to have some flexibility for each other. And I'm starting to see bosses, owners being a little bit more understanding around this because it's difficult.
Yes. And I love what you mentioned in the sense of, and I think that's the biggest concern I've seen from some clients so far. You mentioned going to the bathroom. When you're at home, you're going to the bathroom. There's no big deal about it. But now you're at home and you're working from home and you have all those different, responsibilities on your way to the bathroom. You might see, oh, right, I need to do this laundry, or, oh, my son dropped something here, I have to pick it up. But I love that little nugget about set an intention before going to the bathroom so you don't get derailed on your way in, because you're still at work and you're just taking that break. Now, how do you suggest people approach? Because it's well good and done to say, speak up, share with your supervisor. What if it was a very fractured relationship before you transitioned, to home? How do you suggest people start that conversation?
So just asking around other coworkers, I would have you have a conversation. How are they managing? How have they communicated it in the past with this particular manager? What's worked? And so it's important that we get to feel things out. If you've had a conversation with a coworker and they expressed that they also are having challenges around that, make sure you kind of have that conversation. How did it go? How did did you pace the conversation? So get a feel for how to manage that conversation. Don't go in there thinking, I just need to just try my best. I want my clients to try their best by using best practices, finding out what would be the best way to go about things, and take a breath before you go in there. It is, if you're already have a difficult relationship, it's going to be very hard to get your message across if you find yourself already, your body's tense and you're in the fight or flight and you're not being your true self. So just manage that in terms of how you approach it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that reminder too. If you are struggling with something, it's very likely that someone else is, or they have gone through it and they might have a solution that you can piggyback on, or just take parts of it that works for you. And the part about the body being tense, it's so crucial, because I think we forget that nonverbal cues are more powerful than verbal cues. And now that we're at home with so many conflicting emotions, and how can people transition from, so my work day is, let's say, negotiated with my manager, my work day is from 10 to 4. And now it's 4 o'clock and I would like to transition now into my work my home mode. Now, before we had the time for us to, we leave the office, we go
Right.
on the transit, or if you drove to work. So you had some time for you to process all those, I guess you can call them unresolved emotions or little concerns, work concerns that you had on your brain. Now we don't have the commute for us to unpack. How can people unpack when I'm coming from my computer and I'm probably going right to my kitchen, or the kids are right there beside me and they already want my attention? What advice do you have for leaders while they're going through this transition?
Well, all clinicians are talking about it right now, and it's really helping being in touch with the self, being mindful in the moment. And so that may looking at taste, hear, see, and just recognizing what are those things that we need to do to calm the system down. So maybe it's a cup of green tea, right? And it's just to kind of sit and take in the green tea and enjoy the moment, and just recognize that you are transitioning into the regular day-to-day routine, which might be preparing supper, getting the kids ready, whatever the case may be. But allowing your body to make that transition, and even having that discussion with the kids. Okay, mom, and we're all taking a break. The day,
Right.
we're all transitioning in this together, and just kind of recognizing, okay, what do I want to do? Do we want to go outside and just look up at the sky, or just kind of listen to the birds? And so if we can, and if we're able to bring the kids in that sort of exercise of bringing the body down, we can do it all together. But just recognizing that, what do I need? What helps me to get grounded? And this is a great
Right.
time to get to know ourselves. So do I need to be in a space that's very quiet? What do I need to do to kind of start to relax my
Right.
body and get into a place where I can feel more in control and transition into a different part of my day?
So it sounds like the transition will call on each of us to be more aware of our nonverbal bodily communication cues and use that opportunity to also over communicate with, if you have kids, with your kids, or probably with your partner, so that you can have those rituals to help you to transition, which I think also sends, such a powerful message to the brain to let it know. I think rituals are so important in this time, which can be hard because we're dealing with so much. There's so much more information. You're juggling so many different things. I want to talk about, the person who's, we talked about the first, opening up the communication with your manager, but especially for racialized and culturally diverse people. That person who's responsible for maybe your trigger or your racism or discrimination at work in the past that you have experienced, or it could be your manager, it could be somebody on your team. And now, you're working from home. So now that person is technically in your home because your computer is open, they can see parts of your home. And that might bring up a little bit of, feeling a little bit violated, or might, trigger the person reliving the trauma because now you no longer feel safe at your home. How can you guide or coach, someone around that? What would you say to them?
I think it's important that we make those changes as best as we can. And one way, in terms of just kind of meeting with people in a space that's now our own, I think it's important, first of all, that we make it in a way that you're choosing a place where there's nothing. There's no markers within the room. And as much as we can keep that room neutral, we can still hold on a piece of ourselves. And I think it's absolutely key, because we had that boundary, that separation before. My home
Physical.
my work life. Absolutely. It was completely distant. So as much as we can, right? I know it's difficult finding a place. I have a client that would go into their child's room, and there's one blank wall that she uses, and she's like, nobody knows where it is, nobody knows what's going on, but knowing that I can be in that space and there's no markers. I know where I am, and recognizing that what you're feeling is what you're feeling, and that I often let people know that you don't have to struggle with yourself to recognize, is this what I'm really feeling? Is this real? The idea is, if you're experiencing it, it's real for you.
It's real.
It's real. And
so powerful.
Don't worry about having to explain it to other people, because people may not understand it, and that's okay. But recognize that you have the right to feel and experience that. And in those moments, do the best that you can to protect yourself. And one of those ways of doing that is just making sure that your space is still your space.
Right.
And you are still using your friends and family. I often tell people, right, if you can seek this, the support of a professional, that's great. But recognize if you have good friends, good family members that you can talk to and you can express what's happening for you and they can hold that.
Right.
Amazing. And to
Yeah.
use those resources as best as we can, because this is our reality for many of us.
Right. Yes. And I love that reminder for allowing yourself to feel whatever you feel. I call it the emotional human rights, the number one emotional human right.
Yeah.
You're allowed to feel anything, anytime, for any reason. There's no need to validate it. Right. What if someone, you don't have that capacity, or that, as we were talking earlier, I live in a 1-bedroom condo. I live downtown Toronto, so I don't have the luxury of a den. Right. It's either, I'm on this side of the couch and I have to tell my husband, stay in the room, don't come out, don't say anything. You're not allowed in half of the space. I turn around, I'm in my kitchen. What if, they just don't have a choice, but you can see a little bit, just like you've seen a little bit of, in my life, you've seen my Benny Bing photo and so forth. What can people do to psychologically, little tips or tricks for them to transition from feeling protected? Or is there a ritual that you've seen clients do to cleanse their energy and emotion, to take that deep breath? Right. What would you suggest?
We always go back to self-talk and finding ways to sort of focus on things that empower us. Who are the people that empower us? What do they say about me? I am, we bring in mantras. So what's important, I know oftentimes when I start with clients, they're like, Carole, the mantras, the self-talk, I needed that today. And we don't want to wait for those moments when you need it before you go onto the call. I want you to be doing that beforehand, right? Recognize that we need to do these practices beforehand. And people may think, hey, I don't need it. But when you've done the practice, you can go back to it when you need it. So do you remember who you are? Do you remember what you've been capable of doing? Right. And so we have to really get back into our minds. And we know that our minds and our bodies work in tangent.
And yes.
So how do we kind of really, I say trick our minds, but it is kind of like that. We're tricking our body, but we're not tricking in what the words that we're saying. We know words are powerful. Right. And that's often what I tell my clients. Words are so powerful. And I sit down and I do this exercise. What if I told you this about yourself? What do you feel right now? Well, I don't appreciate that. And I'm like, what if I say this about you and this about you and all the things that I know that we've learned and we've built a connection and I know about them for sure. How do you feel now? I feel better. And I'm like, I know, because that's how it works. It's that we speak life.
Into, yes, words have power.
Recognize that. Speak life into you. Because what happens is when we get into those moments, it's like as if we forget those.
Yes.
We forget those positive words. We need to speak life throughout the day, throughout the weeks, so that when we get into those moments, remember who we are. It's an unconscious plus that we get that comes into play. And I just love the ability that we have with words. Words change.
I love that reminder to use the mantras, because again, your subconscious brain is always eavesdropping on what you say to yourself, right? So I love, that we can use mantra, we can use words, we can use, powerful phrases to remind us. One mantra that I use when I feel a little bit unsafe, or I feel a bit like, just off balance, I often use the mantra, I am safe, all is well, I am protected. And I am loved, and that usually helps calm my nervous system down. I also love using, I love your reminder about using the 5 senses, right? What can I see? What can I touch? What can I smell? So for me personally, I love incense. So I love lighting something, and I use this as, as a way to almost like, again, transition into my next moment, so that I can be present, I can give my best, and I can just focus on what's in front of me. And also the days I don't do it, and not to be hard on myself, because again, our best will change from moment to moment and day to day.
The kindness starts with us, right? The kindness, and the love and tender care, we have to start within ourselves.
Yes.
I love it.
I love that. Okay, so we talk a lot about, I want to talk about, psychological safety, and in the workplace, there are things that, organizations did to ensure that they have psychological safety for staff. So in your work, what suggestions, what have you seen people do virtually differently to help increase psychological safety from a virtual perspective for staff? And any suggestions or tips that you can give to people leaders and then for individuals so that they can do on their own as well?
I've seen people take off their cameras. If you're in a meeting and it's a bit overwhelming, again, we're all transitioning, take off your camera for a moment, take a break, come back. No one's going to tap you on the hand for that. We are in information overload. And it's so important that if you do need to do that to sort of ground yourself, take that time. I prefer people take care of themselves, and I would imagine employers too, than showing up and feeling unsupported or just, out of sorts. So I think one thing that I encourage people to do is take off the computer, take off the camera. If we're doing a Zoom call, whatnot, and it's a group of people, take a break as needed. The other piece is that I think employers are starting to recognize that they also have to protect themselves in terms of we don't know what this new world is going to create. And so there are a lot of ways that we can reassure ourselves for safety. Organizations are doing it, whether it's passwords or those sort of things, to kind of keep people level-headed, feeling like this is a correct site or whatever the case may be. And also kind of just recognize that, yes, it could be difficult for you to have those conversations if you're feeling unsafe, if you're feeling, that, you're not in a place where people can accept you for who you are. But try and create the ability for you to make those connections with the people that you think understand you best. I know in our organization, we have people that we don't get along, but how do you connect with the people that, really understand you best so that they can also pass that message on if they have a better connection with an employer, so that they can start to say, some people have said, as long as if you have that trusting relationship, that this tends to be a challenge or whatnot. So find those people that you connect with and, have those conversations and ask if they can start that conversation, share that, so that we can, or make room for you to share that. Because sometimes you have, coworkers are like, oh, remember we had that discussion today, and they may say, Carol, can you elaborate on that? And if you have a coworker that can kind of do that ping pong kind of action with you, create that kind of opportunity so that you can have those conversations. I think we're all learning about how to work in this kind of environment. And I think we need to have some flexibility. We have to have some flexibility and be realistic with what's happening currently. So I think all of those measures, it's in the same sort of understanding that I would say for organizations, that they also have to be patient with the process. A lot of organizations had great plans, but now they have to roll back those plans and try different things that they never thought they would be worrying about. And so they needed to have that flexibility and understanding. And the idea is to offer that to their employees as well too.
Right. Oh, I love that expansion of trust and looking at support beyond your immediate, because I remember during my 20-year career at the bank, I had a very ineffective boss, and I thought that he was responsible for my career, my growth, my leadership growth. So I was waiting for him to be a better leader. I put all the pressure on him to be a better leader. I never thought I had the agency or the autonomy for me to go beyond him and look for whether it's leadership guidance or peer-to-peer support from someone else. So I get it. Sometimes we can be stuck thinking that, no, Carol, you're my boss. You're supposed to do better. You should know better. But while I'm waiting for you to be better, my mental health decreases, my overall well-being gets impacted, my productivity gets impacted. So there's a domino effect as well. So I really love your perspective on creating more space and expanding on looking beyond that immediate supervisor or beyond that boss, and looking at who do I have a trusted relationship with that I can have that conversation with, who can probably either be a champion for me or listen or even provide different perspectives. That's a really, really, really great one. some people might be worried about, maybe you were poised to get a promotion, or people might be worried about how productivity might impact the end of year report or the end of year, appraisal report. Like, what advice would you give to both leaders as well as individuals as we, again, navigate this? I'm not calling it the new normal anymore. I call it the shift in normal, because I find every day there's something new.
We're learning all the time. We're learning.
Yeah.
All the time. I encourage people, and we hear it all the time, share what you're doing. Share, don't keep it to yourself. Even if it's an email, and it doesn't have to be a group email. Maybe people don't feel comfortable. I don't want to be put on blast. I don't want to show off. Okay, well, share to your manager, and maybe CC somebody else that you know is trusted, and your manager wouldn't mind being part of that group email. Share what you're doing. So this week, so far for the year, I was able to accomplish these things, and I'm working towards this. I'm so excited. Where am I? So tracking, letting people know where you are, because we get into our own heads, and oftentimes I let even couples, when I'm with couples, individuals, we have our own past that gets in our way. Yeah. And so when we start to kind of get familiar with what are the things, what are your triggers that kind of, plays, that's not a friend of yours, become aware of that, and recognize that even in the workplace, you have the right to say, this is what I'm doing. I'm excited about this. And it's not fake. It's that, yeah, I am making progress, and I have the right, and I'm not lying, and to express that so that people know I'm doing the work that you trust me to do. You're trusting me to do.
Yeah.
So I really encourage people to do that. Don't be afraid. Send an email, talk to people, share this. This is the work that you love, hopefully, and you enjoy doing. Let people know about what you're doing, and tracking that progress for yourself and for others.
I love that. And for leaders who now manage people, how do you suggest they broach? Because I think part of the responsibility of being a great leader is not waiting for your staff to come to you with some of the solutions. Of course, I mean, part of my role as a leader is to make sure that I share my ideas and I track my wins and all the things. Mm-hmm. But as a very inclusive leader, it's also your responsibility to address the elephant in the room, right? We know people will be worried about productivity in the end of year. What do you suggest that those people leaders, those who are leading teams, what do you suggest they do? What's one thing they can do right now to help ease that pressure off their staff?
They're counting on you. And I love what you said before. They're counting on you to elevate above this thing. And that's a big responsibility. But I think it's your time. This is your time for you to lead in a different way now. And so share what you're seeing and encourage your team. They need your encouragement. And we, look for the good. I say that in couple therapy. I say for look for the good.
Look for the good. I like that.
Because when I see you, this is what I see about you, Carol, and I'm really appreciating you. People love to hear that. It's not, it's not a lie. It's that you're seeing that in them and encouraging them during this time. And who hasn't received emails from various organizations, TELUS, Bell, Rather, all these big we're doing this, we're working together as a team, encouraging your team, sending emails out to your team, sending funny jokes out to still bringing the team together so that we feel connected, and letting them know these are things you have to worry about. This is on my plate to worry about.
Right.
And so even sending out those information emails and letting them know, this is what I'm taking care of. I've got you, and I know this is on your mind. Yeah. So I think it's important to as leaders to really share that you, or show or model that you have your team.
I like that. Yes. Model the behavior that you'd like to see. Yeah, because people just want to be seen. I was listening to Glennon Doyle. She does those IG lives every morning. She said something that was very impactful to me. She said, sometimes when people come to you to share their pain or whatever it is that they're struggling with or they would like to share, they're not sharing sometimes to be fixed or to be told what to do. Sometimes they also share just to be seen. So even with the manager sharing what they're doing, and here's how I want to support you, or I am supporting you, they're allowing the staff also to be seen and feel heard, because the staff might be going through that little mental tape in their head, but they don't know how to articulate it. So by you just sharing, hey, as your leader, I got you, you automatically elevate them. They may not come back to you and say anything, and I get it. It's a lot of pressure on people leaders right now to do the right thing, but we don't have a manual. They're writing the manual, as you said, as they go along. So it's so important for both sides to be very compassionate. And what I love about your work as a therapist, you know, relationship and couples therapist, is that people forget that a relationship in the workplace, there's a contract. It's a relationship, right? People keep thinking relationships only in terms of marriage or, you know, with your partner, your significant other, but there's also, you're building a relationship from work, and now that relationship is virtual, it's also going to be strained. I want to spend our last two questions taking a look at, so you're at work and you have that, maybe again going back to the strained relationship, because it's great to fix to focus on the good when things are good, but we're not necessarily in a all good place. We have good little hopeful moments, we have good moments in between. How do we avoid taking on the negative strain from a strained relationship at work and don't bring it onto our partner? Because we may not feel comfortable telling that boss or that supervisor exactly what we want to say, but your husband or your significant other, whether it's male, female, or they, however they self-identify, just moved your coffee cup. And now you're like, why did you move my coffee cup? You never support me. How do we avoid that emotional vomit?
So coming home and bringing that to our partners. Absolutely. I think it's a process. It's a process. And I think it's important for us to recognize that, first of all, that we are bringing home that baggage, that we are, you know, recognizing that I'm really tense when I get home and for hours after, and just being curious with that. Because I think, you know, you said something that's so beautiful. It's the judgment that we have to be aware of, that we don't place on addition to a very difficult day, or in addition to a very difficult place to work. So the idea is that, yes, it makes sense that you are stressed, that you might be feeling something when you come home, and just recognize that you can sit with that. And so we go back to, do I need to be seen? Do I need to be heard? Do I feel rejected? Do I feel unloved? What's happening there? What is it bringing up? So I always encourage my clients to be curious around that. And if there are aspects of that you think are missing, or you're feeling, giving ourselves that, giving that love to ourselves, recognizing that, you know what, I do feel rejected. What does that remind you of? Well, you know what, at times I remember growing up and feeling that at home. Oh, okay. And so just recognizing that, okay, so what did you need then? What do you need now?
What do you need in the moment? I love that. That's such a powerful question, right?
So
what do I need in the moment to deal with that rejection or that feeling that might be coming from, I don't know, 20 years ago? You will get triggered again in this very traumatized season. So yeah, that's such a great, is there anything physically that we can do? So I love the reflection part. It's so great, because then we have to now align our internal world. What else can people do? Because again, we're already at home. If you can take a walk, that's great. But what else can people do if they're inside and they just cannot leave the house immediately?
I always say, is there something that you like to create? I find like when we're creative, or if there's things that we like to focus on, images that we like to look at, old pictures. Okay, I am going to push people at times to, you know, websites and internet, and that's okay too. But sometimes, you know, I've heard from people like, I just love Instagram for all the pictures and all the images. And I'm like, okay, we can offer yourself that with pacing that a little bit as well too, because images, what are the things that kind of bring us life? What are the people? Do you need to call up your sister? Do you need to call up your brother? You know, so offering yourself that and being very creative with that as well too. That I know we all know that it's very different right now, but offering yourself that mini getaway. Yes, we're home, and maybe you're not even walking into the house right away. Let's say you do. There are people that are still working, and so they are having a hard day. Maybe it's just sitting out in the car. You know, I often said that you don't have to go in right away. Maybe it's just sitting on your balcony, you know, but letting the people that are closest to you know that I do need this time. I might not be able to talk right away in the first 10 minutes or 35 minutes of arriving home, but it's not about you.
Yes.
It's not
Oh,
about
I
you.
love that.
I'm working through this, and it's been really hard.
Mhm.
There's no judgment. You don't have to be super mom or super dad or all of the
For
time.
anything,
And
yeah.
especially now, that's a big call. It's a big call.
It is. It is. And I love the curiosity, because the 3 C's, for the series that I'm encouraging people to explore is curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
compassion, and courage. So
Mm-hmm.
curiosity to sit with a lot of the uncomfortable emotions and things that will come up because we're doing things differently and it's shifting every day. Courage to do exactly what you said, to take action, to sit with it, maybe to be quiet with it, or maybe to create something, or actually to let your partner know that, you know what, today was rough. I'll be a little quiet tonight, or I don't know what it is, so I can articulate it. And also the compassion to self, right? To not be too hard on ourselves, but also same for others, because people are going through this, pandemic differently. We all have different coping strategies. We all have different things that we do. So such a great reminder. I love the different examples that you offered. So my final thing is, and you mentioned it, you alluded to it before, is around, the looking for the good, because there's so much information. The brain is on, the amygdala is fired up. We're in either fight, flight, or freeze mode. What's now? Can we go out? Can we not go out? Oh my gosh. So we're all feeling the tension in our bodies. What is that one thing that people can do to remember to look for the good? What is in your relationship at home, relationship with self, or relationship with others? Can you share some ideas with us?
I think the most important thing is that as we're all sort of making life under one roof work, we all have different jobs. And so I was, listening to a podcast recently, and one of the gentlemen said, so, my dad's the butler, my mom's the, she handles the laundry, my wife is the teacher, I'm the principal, but even though if I'm the principal, that means I have to handle the kids when they're doing, everyone has a role, and roles, we come in and out of them all the time, especially in a family system. I think it's important that when you see people doing that role, just saying, hey, I really appreciate you. Thanks. Right? It doesn't have to be a big set, it doesn't have to be a big deal, but just showing appreciation that your role, you're doing the role the best that you can, and that you're enjoying it, or there are aspects of it that you are enjoying. And wow, you're doing a great job. So just all we can do is just kind of be in the moment and celebrate those roles, and even talk about, similar to what I say in the workplace, talk about what you're doing and what you're enjoying and your role, and being lighthearted about it. The best way that we can get through this is, as much as we can, is to be lighthearted. And I'm seeing people doing TikTok videos and all these. Just we need to be light about it. Yeah. We really can't get our head around
right.
this.
Yeah, I love that.
Find that moment to be to have fun, to be lighthearted about it, and to recognize that we're all coming into this role. I'm seeing you. I see you handling that laundry, and it is not easy, and it's a lot going on. Appreciating, and when we model that, people will also start to feel that warmth, and maybe even give us a hand in our duties and support one another. It's not simple. It's not easy. We're all in very different circumstances. Sometimes we're with loved ones we don't always get along with, and that's another question in itself.
That's a whole other interview we need to do.
That's a whole other piece. But just recognize it. Whatever you're showing up and you're doing it to the best of your ability. I'm sure of it. I don't even need to know who I'm talking to, but I'm sure of it.
Yes.
You're doing it to the best of your ability.
Co-sign. I agree. And if you're watching this series with Carol and I, we want you to know that you're doing your best. We're part of you. One of the things I started at home to help continue seeing the good, because I know the brain's negativity bias will continue to look for the bad. I created something called the appreciation jar. I don't have it close by. The appreciation jar. And I put stuff in there that I appreciate about my husband that he did. Instead of saying, oh, you cooked and I can still see crumbs in the sink, I can say, you know what? At least you cleaned up the sink, babes. Good job, right? Because we're creatures of habit. We'll go and look for, oh, this is still there. You didn't pick it up. So I created the appreciation jar as a way to keep me grounded in looking for the good as well. And the Doesn't happen every day, but I am trying every day to do better. And I think the key is to remind ourselves to be better every day and to recognize that we are doing our best. So rapid fire question before we wrap up. What are you watching right now that's bringing you so much joy? Who is your favorite person you follow online, and your favorite book?
The Bluest Eyes is my favorite book.
Okay. That's by Toni Morrison.
That's correct. And I am binging on Netflix. It's called The Love. Oh my goodness. What is the name of it? Love is Blind.
Oh, Love is Blind. I've been hearing about that series. I'm not into it, but I have to.
Yes, that's my guilty pleasure. And it's still connected to my work relationship and how people
of course
each other. Love that, enjoy that. And so what was the third question? Was there a third question?
I said book. What are you watching? Oh, what is the other one? Was it your favorite song? Now I can remember. What was your favorite song that you put on? You listened to? Or it could be an artist. Favorite artist.
My favorite artist has always been Whitney Houston. And I haven't, I want to dance with somebody. I think that's love brings you back to when Whitney was Whitney, as people would say. Yeah. And so, yeah, definitely. I think those are some key things about myself.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. Trying to keep grounded.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Find that ground and that center every single day. Thank you so much, Carole. So what are some of the things like you're working on? What can people reach out to you for? We thank you for being a part of the transition and helping people to navigate this shift in normal, looking at relationships, career, and how we can make the best of this current season. Is there anything special you're working on right now? What can people reach out to you for? Are you still taking clients?
Yep, absolutely. We're doing a lot of couple work. So I'm asking people to jump online. We're putting together shortly a questionnaire that people can answer. So once they jump online, they can let me know what they want, what they need specifically, and how we can support them. So there's a lot of ways that people can start to take care of each other, whether in couples or themselves during this difficult time. And I'm seeing people still reach out despite their circumstances. I do need to talk to someone. I do need to connect. So jump online, www.caroleconsults.ca. And I'm just excited to support people, especially during this transition, trying to, have roundtables and talk about how do we take care of our mental health. So a lot of good things, and just being present for people at this time is important.
Thank you. Thank you so much for showing up. You're watching the transition interview series. Thank you, Carole, and stay tuned next week for our next interview, which will be another segment looking at our how can we continue to lead with intention and be inclusive during the shift in normal. Okay, I'm Karlyn Percil, and see you over on LinkedIn. Okay.